You've been defending something that doesn't exist, fighting for a version of yourself that was never real. And the moment you see this, everything changes. There's a war happening inside you right now. Not a loud one. Not the kind with explosions or screams. It's quieter than that, more persistent. It's the war between who you think you are and the truth beneath all that thinking. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet touch the floor, the voice begins. What do I need to do today? Who do I need to be? How will I be seen? The questions tumble forward like stones down a hill, picking up speed, gathering weight. And somewhere beneath all that momentum, there's a small, almost imperceptible exhaustion, a tiredness that sleep doesn't cure. Because you're not just living your life, you're maintaining an image of it. You're curating a self, defending it, polishing it, making sure it holds up under the gaze of others and, most demandingly, under your own scrutiny. The ego is not evil. Let's be clear about that from the beginning. It's not some demon to be destroyed or enemy to be defeated. It's more like a painting you've been adding brushstrokes to since childhood, layer upon layer, color upon color, until you can barely see the canvas underneath. You were told who to be before you knew how to ask if that's who you wanted to become. Be polite, be successful, be strong, be desirable, be enough. And so you became a collection of responses, a walking answer to other people's expectations. The ego isn't you, it's the accumulated defense system you built to navigate a world that seemed to demand something specific from you. Think about the last time someone criticized you. Not even harshly, just a small comment, a passing observation. Notice what happened in your body? The tightening, the heat, the immediate scramble to defend, to explain, to justify that reaction. That's not you. That's the ego sensing a threat to its carefully constructed identity. The ego is the story you tell about yourself over and over until you believe it's the only story there is. I'm the kind of person who I've always been, people see me as. These aren't descriptions of reality. They're borders you've drawn around the infinite. They're limitations you've placed on something that was never meant to be limited. Here's what makes the ego so convincing. It uses your voice. It thinks with your thoughts. It feels like you because it's been there so long, whispering in your ear, that you've forgotten there was ever a time before it. You've merged with it the way a river merges with its banks, forgetting that water, by nature, has no fixed shape. Watch yourself in conversation. Notice how often you're not really listening, you're preparing your response. You're positioning yourself, making sure your intelligence shows, or your humor, or your depth. You're managing an impression. Even in moments of supposed intimacy, there's a part of you performing, adjusting, calculating. This is exhausting work, and most of it happens so automatically, you don't even realize you're doing it. The ego thrives on comparison. It needs a hierarchy to exist. It must be better than someone, worse than someone, equal to someone. It cannot simply be. It must be something relative to something else. Your worth becomes a measurement, not an inherent truth. You scroll through images of other people's lives and feel that familiar ache, not because their lives are better than yours, but because the ego immediately begins the comparison game. It begins measuring, evaluating, finding itself lacking or superior, never simply at rest. Even your spiritual seeking can become another project of the ego. Another way to be special, enlightened, more aware than others. The ego is so clever it can even opt the journey meant to dissolve it. It can turn awakening into another achievement, another badge, another way to feel separate and defined. But here's the beautiful paradox. The ego isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It's the friction that makes you ask deeper questions. It's the suffering that makes you search. It's the limitation that points toward the unlimited. Without the experience of ego, you would never have the context to recognize what lies beyond it. The ego is like a cocoon, necessary for a time, protective when you were forming. But at some point, if you're to fly, you must realize the cocoon is not your final form. It was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be transcended, not through violence, but through understanding. You are not your thoughts about yourself. You are not your achievements or failures. You are not your reputation or your regrets. You are not even your feelings, which rise and fall like weather. All of these are movements within you, but they are not you. So what remains when all of that falls away? This question terrifies the ego because the ego is all of that. To ask what remains without it feels like asking what remains after death. And in a sense, it is a kind of death. The death of the false. The death of the constructed. The death of the pretend. But beneath that death is something the ego can never imagine: liberation. The first step is simply to notice, not to fight, not to destroy, just to see. To watch the ego at work with gentle curiosity, the way you might watch a child building sandcastles on a beach, serious and absorbed, not realizing the tide will eventually come. Let's go deeper into what the ego actually is and why calling it an illusion isn't a dismissal, but an invitation. An illusion is not the same as a lie. An illusion is something that appears real, functions as if it's real, yet has no independent existence of its own. Like a rainbow, you can see it, you can point to it, you can feel moved by its beauty. But you cannot touch it, you cannot hold it. And if you go searching for where it actually exists, you'll find only light, water, and the specific angle of your perception. The ego is like this. It's a rainbow of the mind. It emerges from conditions, from memory, from language, from culture, from the human need to organize experience into a coherent narrative. And within those conditions, it appears absolutely real. It functions. It makes decisions. It protects you. It drives you forward. But look for it directly, and it vanishes. Try this right now. Close your eyes for a moment and ask, where am I? Not where is your body? Where is the that claims to own this body, these thoughts, this life? Is it in your head, behind your eyes, in your chest? The moment you go looking for the one who's looking, something strange happens. You can't find it. There's awareness, yes. There's sensation, thought, feeling, but no separate entity sitting inside controlling it, all like a pilot in a cockpit. The ego is the presumed pilot, the assumed center, the ghost in the machine that, upon investigation, turns out to be just another function of the machine itself. This isn't a philosophical game. This is direct experience. And when you truly see it, not intellectually, but experientially, something shifts. A weight lifts. A tension releases. Because you've been carrying something that was never yours to carry. Think of it this way. Imagine you're watching a movie, completely absorbed. The hero is in danger. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. You're on the edge of your seat. In that moment, The movie feels utterly real. Your body responds as if it's real. But then someone walks in front of the projector. You see the beam of light. You see the screen. You remember, oh, this is a projection. And immediately, while you can still enjoy the movie, you're no longer enslaved by it. You're no longer lost in it. You remember the space you're sitting in, the awareness that holds it all. The ego is the protagonist of your personal movie. And you've been so absorbed in the story, my struggles, my victories, my pain, that you've forgotten you're also the awareness watching it all unfold. This is what the mystics mean when they speak of awakening. Not becoming someone new, not achieving some special state, but recognizing what you already are beneath the character you've been playing. The Sufis have a teaching, die before you die. It sounds dark, even frightening. But they're not talking about physical death. They're talking about the death of the false identity. The ego, death that reveals the deathless. Because here's the secret: the ego doesn't want you to know you can't die. The real you, the awareness itself, it has no birthday, so it can have no death day. It was never born into time, so time cannot end it. What dies is the story, the character, the accumulated identity. And that death is the most liberating thing that can happen to a human being. But the ego resists this revelation with everything it has. It must. Because from the ego's perspective, this awakening is annihilation. It's the end of its world. So it creates endless distractions, endless dramas, endless projects to keep you identified with it. Just accomplish this one more thing, then you'll be at peace. Just fix this one problem, then you can rest. Just become this version of yourself, then you'll be worthy. The goalposts keep moving because the game is rigged. The ego cannot deliver what it promises because what you're seeking, peace, wholeness, enoughness, cannot be achieved. It can only be recognized as already present. You are looking for what you are looking from. The eye cannot see itself directly, but it's present in every act of seeing. Similarly, you cannot make yourself an object of your own awareness because you are the awareness. You are the space in which all objects, thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions appear and disappear. The ego is one of those objects, a particularly convincing one, a particularly persistent one, but an object nonetheless. And here's where it becomes beautiful rather than tragic. The ego, for all its limitations, is also a masterwork. It's the way infinite consciousness explores what it's like to be apparently limited. It's how the ocean experiences being a wave, separate, individual, vulnerable, temporary, and yet never, not for a moment, actually separate from the ocean itself. You are playing hide and seek with yourself. You are the hider and the seeker. And the joy is not in winning the game, but in recognizing you've been both all along. The illusion isn't a mistake. It's a feature. It's how consciousness knows itself through contrast. How light knows itself through shadow. How the infinite experiences the finite without ever ceasing to be infinite. So when I say the ego is an illusion, I'm not diminishing your experience. I'm not saying your pain isn't real or your struggles don't matter. I'm saying that the one you think is suffering, the separate, isolated, deficient self, that one is the illusion. What's real is the suffering itself, moving through awareness. What's real is the love, the longing, the beauty, the grief, all of it, held in something vast and unshakable. You are not in the experience. The experience is in you. So what happens when you see through the illusion? When you recognize the ego for what it is? You might expect everything to change dramatically. You might expect some profound transformation, a constant state of bliss, an end to all problems. But that's the ego's fantasy of enlightenment, one last achievement to attain. The truth is both simpler and more subtle. Life continues. Thoughts still come. Feelings still arise. The person you appear to be still goes to work, has conversations, experiences preferences and aversions. The difference is in your relationship to all of it. You're no longer strangled by it, no longer imprisoned by it. You're free within it. Imagine you're watching waves in the ocean. Some waves are beautiful and graceful. Others are chaotic and violent. But the ocean isn't disturbed by which wave is which. The ocean isn't trying to keep only the pretty waves and push away the rough ones. The ocean allows all waves because it knows they're all made of the same water. They're all temporary movements of its own depth. When you see through the ego, you become like the ocean rather than identifying as a particular wave. Your personality doesn't disappear. Your preferences don't vanish. You don't become some blank, emotionless zombie. If anything, you become more alive, more present, more responsive to reality as it is rather than as the ego needs it to be. But there's a spaciousness now, a breathing room. When someone criticizes you, you might still feel the initial sting. But you don't merge with it. You notice, there's the defensive reaction. There's the ego sensing a threat. And in that noticing, you're already free from it. You can respond from wisdom rather than react from wound. When you fail at something, the disappointment comes. But underneath it, you're not in crisis. You haven't lost yourself, because you were never the story of success or failure to begin with. When someone loves you, you can receive it fully without the ego's desperate grasping, without the fear of losing it, without the need to control or possess it. This is what it means to live without the center, without the constant reference point of me and mine. It doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. It means you become fluid, responsive. You can be fully engaged with life without being entangled in it. Think of how you were as a child before the ego fully formed. Remember playing, completely absorbed. There was doing, but no self, conscious door standing apart from the doing, evaluating it, worrying about how it looked. You can return to that. Not by becoming childish, but by becoming free. Here's a simple practice. Throughout your day, pause and ask, who is aware right now? Not as an intellectual question, but as a genuine inquiry. You'll notice thoughts, sensations, perceptions, but can you find the separate, you, who's having them? Or is there just aware presence, and all these experiences arising within it? This practice doesn't require you to withdraw from life. You can do it while washing dishes, while talking to someone, while working. Just a momentary recognition. Oh, there's awareness. And I am that, not the objects appearing in it. At first, this might feel philosophical or abstract. But gradually, it becomes lived reality. The center of gravity shifts from the small, defended self to the vast, open awareness that was always here. Another practice, watch your stories. Notice how the mind is constantly narrating, interpreting, spinning meaning. This happened because I'm not good enough. They said that because they don't respect me. If only I had done this differently, everything would be better. These stories feel true. They feel like reality, but they're not. They're the ego's attempt to make sense of existence, to maintain its narrative coherence. You don't have to fight these stories. Just see them as stories. Like subtitles running beneath experience, commentary that's often inaccurate, always partial, never the whole truth. And here's what happens when you stop believing every story. You become free to respond freshly to each moment. You're not carrying forward grudges, assumptions, predetermined conclusions. You meet reality as it is, not as your history says it should be. This is what the Zen masters mean by beginner's mind. Not ignorance, but innocence. Not knowing, but not being trapped by what you think you know. The ego lives in the past and future. It's made of memory and projection. It's constantly referencing what was and anticipating what will be, missing the only place where life actually happens here, now. When you let go of the ego's time-bound identity, you don't lose your history. You don't forget your name or your story. But you're no longer imprisoned by them. You can access memory without being haunted by it. You can plan for the future without being anxious about it. You become like a bird that can land on a branch without clinging to it, knowing that when it's time to fly, the branch will not come along. The ego clings because it thinks it is the branch. Awareness knows itself as the sky. Does this mean you'll never suffer again? No. Pain will still come, physical, emotional, existential. Loss will come, change will come. But suffering, which is the mind's resistance to pain, begins to dissolve. You can feel sadness without the story, I am a sad person. You can experience failure without the identity, I am a failure. You can encounter fear without collapsing into I am afraid. The experiences move through you, but they don't define you. They're weather, not climate. Waves, not ocean. This is the practical liberation that comes from seeing through the beautiful illusion of ego. You're still here, still present, still engaged, but free. There's a particular moment that comes to everyone who walks this path. It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or visions. It's quiet, like the moment between breaths. You're doing something ordinary, making coffee, walking down a street, looking out a window, and suddenly, for no reason the mind can name, you feel it, I am not who I thought I was. And rather than being terrifying, it's the deepest relief you've ever known. Because what you thought you were was so small, so defended, so fragile and conditional. And what you actually are is vast, unbound, impossible to threaten, because there's nothing separate to attack. The ego was never your enemy. It was your teacher, your training ground, the cocoon that held you while you developed the wings you're only now remembering you have. Every moment of suffering, every crisis of identity, every dark night of the soul, they were all invitations to look deeper, to question the fundamental assumption. I am this body-mind, separate from everything else, struggling to survive and become enough. That assumption is the root of all psychological suffering. Not pain is part of being alive, but suffering, the story we tell about the pain, the resistance to what is, the feeling that something is wrong with us or wrong with life that comes from the belief in the separate self. And here's the miracle. The moment you truly see through that belief, it begins to dissolve, not through effort, not through years of practice or perfect behavior, but through simple recognition. It's like waking from a dream. One moment you're running from a monster, heart pounding, terrified. The next moment you're awake in your bed and you realize, oh, none of that was real. I'm safe. I was always safe. The ego is the dream of separation. An awakening is recognizing you were never separate to begin with. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. Everything you've been seeking, peace, love, wholeness, belonging, worth, has always been here. Not hidden somewhere you need to find it. Not earned through accomplishment. Not dependent on external circumstances. It's the very awareness reading these words. The consciousness that has never left you, never judged you, never needed you to be anything other than what you are. The ego says, become worthy, then you'll be loved. Awareness says, you are love itself, appearing as a person. The ego says, fix yourself, then you'll be whole. Awareness says, wholeness is seeing there was never anything broken. The ego says, achieve peace, then you can rest. Awareness says, you are the peace that holds all seeking. This doesn't mean you stop growing or learning or engaging with life. It means you do it from fullness rather than lack, from curiosity rather than compulsion, from love rather than fear. You still have preferences. You still make choices. You still participate in the dance of existence. But you're no longer dancing for something. You're not performing for approval, not striving for an imaginary finish line where you'll finally be enough. You're dancing because dancing is what happens. Because life is expressing itself through this particular form, and the form is free to move, to create, to love, to rest. The spiritual path, ultimately, is not about gaining anything. It's about losing everything that isn't you. It's about stripping away the layers of conditioning, belief and identity until what remains is simply this aware, alive, present whole. And the beautiful paradox is that this you that remains is not personal. It's not special or unique to you. It's the same awareness looking out through every pair of eyes. The same consciousness expressing itself as mountains and oceans, as stars and stones, as every being that has ever lived or will ever live. You are the universe experiencing itself from this particular angle for this brief moment in time. The ego makes you feel separate from everything. Truth reveals you were always everything, pretending to be separate. So how do you live from this understanding? You begin where you are. You begin with the next breath, the next moment, the next kindness. You notice when the ego asserts itself, when you feel superior or inferior, when you're defending or attacking, when you're lost in time rather than present to now. And you don't make the ego wrong for appearing. You don't wage war on it. You simply recognize it with the gentle smile of someone who knows the secret. Ah, there you are again. I'm trying to convince me I'm small and separate. Thank you for trying to protect me. But I remember now. I remember what I really am. And in that remembering, the grip loosens. The identification softens. The space opens. You become the sky that holds all weather without being touched by it. You become the silence that holds all sound without being disturbed by it. You become the light by which everything is seen, invisible to itself yet present in all seeing. This is not a destination. It's not a permanent state you achieve and then maintain. It's a recognition that comes and goes, deepening each time, until it becomes more familiar than the dream of separation ever was. Some days you'll forget. You'll get lost in the story again. You'll believe the ego's narrative, feel its urgency, carry its burden. And that's okay. That's part of the dance, too. Because even in forgetting, you're never lost. The awareness that you are remains unchanged, waiting patiently for you to turn your attention back to it, the way the sun waits patiently for clouds to pass. You are already home. You were never lost. The ego is a beautiful illusion, and seeing through it doesn't destroy the beauty. It reveals what beauty actually is. Not something you possess, but something you are. Not something you achieve, but something you've always been. Be gentle with yourself. Be patient with the process. Trust the unfolding. The illusion is dissolving in its own time, and what remains is real, radiant, and free. You are that. You always have been.